So first of all, welcome all. We have another session today. It's a very vital rule that only some of us may know, and some of us may also have heard about it already. But it's a very, very vital rule that is applicable in all philosophies of life, not just in financial world, but especially in the corporate world and also in the sector of education and everywhere else you can find. So it's called 80-20 rule. So let's get started. It's, as I said, it's a very powerful and simple rule that we are going to learn about today. It's very useful in a lot of facets of life. We will see how. It's called the 80-20 rule. It was first discovered by scientist Vilfredo Pareto, who applied it to the basically demographies of Italy. So he was an Italian. It was discovered a long back, and then another scientist worked on it in industrial revolution time during uh, when industries grew the most in the Western economy. That time it was applied by another scientist, Juran, and then in recently it has been applied into networks, and economic theory, and education, and a lot more. So let's learn about 80-20. So what it is, and it's called by various other names. Also, it's called the law of the vital few. We will see why. It is also uh, called as the law of the trivial many. Okay. Okay. That's so there is basically only the rule is simple to understand. Okay, it's not very complex. It's the application of this that may be complex in terms of statistics, in terms of finding the data. Okay. So I'll try to keep it in Hindi and English both as always to keep it for the benefit of everyone, and I'll try to repeat the important concepts. So the rule is simple. It asserts that a small number of causes, inputs, or efforts leads to majority of the results or outputs or rewards. ठीक है? थोड़े से causes की वजह से, थोड़े से inputs की वजह से, थोड़े से effort की वजह से ज़्यादा result आता है. Like ज़्यादा result आता है in the sense that smaller number of inputs created the bigger percentage of the results. As you can see in the slide also, 20% जो gray area है, that is symbolizing the 80% gray in the bigger right side of the cylinder. Basically, 20% of what you are doing is bringing 80% of the results. To keep it simple for you, okay? In anything, we will see some applications. We will see some examples. Okay. So we will. So as I said, the rule is very vital to many things. One thing it is vital to is success. So you can definitely learn from this rule and apply this rule and bring success to your life, personal life, I mean, and also your financial life, and also your other learning areas. For most of us here, the application would be okay. 20% और 100 चीजों से 80% तक रिजल्ट आता है और बाकी के 80% जो इनपुट्स हैं that are only contributing to 20% of the result. 2 nights when you study before the exam, you cover 80%, more than 80% of the syllabus, right? Just because studying 2 to 3 nights at a stretch by doing deep work. Okay. Now this is, you can also understand it as a theory of imbalance. तो कोई भी इनपुट होता है, आउटपुट होता है, 2 फैक्टर होते हैं. तो एक किसके साथ है? फर्स्ट मेट्रिक इज the first side of it, and second metric is the second side of it. ठीक है? तो there is a natural imbalance between input and the output. ये लॉ से अपने को पता चलता है. They are not directly proportional as someone might think कि 10% इनपुट डाला तो 10% आउटपुट आया, फिर 50% डाला तो 50%, 100% डाला तो 100% आया. ऐसा नहीं है ये रिलेशन in the universe, in real world. It is practically imbalanced. It is completely imbalanced. The balance may be in favor of 80-20, or the imbalance may be in favor of 70-30, or it may be 81 rule also, or it may be 99-1. Let's see one example of 81 rule. 81 rule is, let's say there are 1 million words in Oxford Dictionary. Okay. And out of those, we use only 700 to 800 common words, make the most of our speech. That means out of total words out of like 80% of the common speech is created by 1% of the words from the dictionary. So it's 81 rule. Okay. So let's see some examples and we will understand. So typically you see most of us code here. It's a very interesting example. 20% of the code has 80% of the errors. So it's not just put here to shock you or anything. This is here because it's the fact. Please don't get me wrong. It does not mean the relation will be found exactly as 80-20. But as I said before, it's could work in the theory of imbalance rather than a complete balance. Like 50-50 nahi hoga kabhi bhi. It will always be in favor or tweaked to the imbalance. So it could be 70-30, it could be any other relation, or it could be just 5% of the code may have 90% of the bugs, something like that. Okay. 90/5 rule, or 99/1 rule in various other cases, as we will see. So this is applicable to the code industry. Let's see how it is applicable to the wealth industry. तो वेल्थ में हम देखते हैं ये इसका कहाँ पे डिस्टिंक्शन हमें दिखता है 80-20 का मोस्ट प्रोमिनेंट. ऐसा मत समझो कि वेल्थ में ये एक ही जगह अप्लाई होता है. वेल्थ में बहुत चीजों पे ये अप्लाई होता है. स्टॉक मार्केट्स पे भी अप्लाई होता है, म्यूचुअल फंड्स पे भी अप्लाई होता है. 20% ऑफ द फंड्स ब्रिंग 80% और 90% ऑफ द रिटर्न्स ऑफ योर पोर्टफोलियो. और लेट्स से 20% ऑफ योर स्टॉक्स ऑफ द पोर्टफोलियो ब्रिंग 80% ऑफ द मोमेंटम और द रिजल्ट. So there are various applications in finance itself, but we are just seeing here one example. So let's say 80% of the wealth is owned by 20, or it's an abstract number, it could be 5% of the population. So only 5 to 10 or maybe 5 to 20% people, the exact number does not matter because it's in the favor of imbalance, own 80 to 85, 90% of the world's wealth. Let's see another example in the hospital industry. तो ये 80%, 20% लोग जो है हमारे देश के फॉर एग्जांपल या किसी भी नेशन के या स्पेसिफिक जोन में हम अगर ये स्टैटिस्टिक्स निकालेंगे तो दे कंज्यूम 80% ऑफ द रिसोर्सेज. नाउ आप समझ में आर्ग्यू, राइट? इट कुड बी एल्डर्स, इट कुड बी एल्डरली, राइट? इट कुड बी 60+ people, it could be sick people or people who have diseases, whatever, but you will see some imbalance there. Also, it is applicable in the health industry. So we can see that it is also applicable in the infection industry. 20% of the infected are responsible for the 80-85% of the transmission because one person spreads it geometrically. Because infection डायरेक्टली जिन लोगों को हो रहा है वो कम है, लेकिन जो एक से ज्यादा फैल रहा है एक से दूसरों को, that spread is more. So you can see the imbalance here. You can see the 80-20 rule hidden in this also. Let's see another good example which everyone can relate to. It's the traffic and basically cars and this thing. So 20% of the defects in car lead to 80% of the crashes. This is one example. There is another example is 20% of the rash drivers cause 80% of the accidents. Another relation in this relation you can basically relate to. 20% of the rash people cause 80% of the accidents. See some more examples. 20% of the criminals commit 80% of the crimes. There is a class, you can imagine a class, and there are always 5 to 20%, anywhere between 5 to 20%. There are 5 to 10 kids or students in the class who are the most who cause most of the troubles to teacher, to other students, and to everyone else in general. तो प्रिंसिपल के पास वही लोग जाते हैं बार-बार चार. यूजुअल सस्पेक्ट्स, राइट? बैक बेंचर्स होते हैं. 20% of the companies, now companies केस में बहुत इसका रिलेशन होता है, like in corporate industry it is highly influential. So 20% of the companies represent 80% of the sales. It means it's like the Nifty 50, right? Sensex में क्या होता है? 30 stocks आप ले लेते हैं और 30 stocks का वो लोग एक इंडिकेटर बना देते हैं. So that is your Sensex. Similarly Nifty 50, right? So it's nothing but 80-20 rule in practice. That index is an indicator of the 80% of the market fluctuation. Similarly, it is in case of companies, let's say, it is applicable to a lot many things. जैसे products होते हैं company के, right? Amazon sells thousands of products. और भी बहुत सारे shops and stores sell a lot of products. Toys stores, stationery stores में बहुत सारी उनके पास variety होती है. Or even the general stores. Forget about Kirana store. There are thousands of items. So typically it is applicable in that product area also. 20% products से ही 80% तक sales या profits में जाता है. Like there are products which sell very less, जिसमें ज्यादा hassle per effort wise ज्यादा owner का waste होता है. Similarly, there are some products that will sell very fast. ठीक है? An example from education here. 20% of the students basically top the class. तो जो toppers होते हैं वो 5% ही होते हैं, आपको पता है. There is top 1, there is top 2, top 3 तक हम सुनते हैं. There is top 10, top 20, top 50, right? In IITs they have top 1000 or top 5000, I don't know. Or top 10,000, bigger competitor. But what is 10,000 compared to 1 billion population? Or let's say, or I don't know how many who appear for the exams. Let's say 2 lakhs, right? So it goes into a favor of imbalance again. There is an example from the factories angle, pollution, growing problem, right? It's everyone's business. So 80% of the pollution maybe we can see coming from an imbalance theory here. Some factories only, right? Some categories of goods only, जिसमें सबसे ज़्यादा pollution होता है. There are that factories which create absolutely basically pungent smell. You cannot stay in that area. There are factories that are hazardous for life. There are factories that throw their pollutions into the river. There are factories that will create poisonous gases. There are factories that will absorb lots of oxygen. So there is a lot of scale that pollution is going on. Don't just think कि factory पानी में कचरा डाल दिया तो हो गया, right? There are 10 other ways factories are creating pollutions. But this is just one example. But it could be, let's say, in the favor of imbalance. But the idea is 80% of the pollution is coming from the major sources. Similarly, 20% of the sources are maybe causing the global warming or ozone revolution or whatever, right? Okay, let's go back. This is a brilliant example from business. I hope you all would like it. 20% of the marketing efforts represents 80% of the sales or results or profits. तो मार्केटिंग में भी क्या होता है, मार्केटिंग में भी 80-20 रूल हम देखते हैं, ये चीज इजीली देखते हैं, बहुत सारे एंगल्स में देखते हैं. जैसे 20% कस्टमर्स ही फॉर एग्जांपल प्रॉफिटेबल होते हैं कंपनी के लिए. 1000 कस्टमर्स हैं अगर समझो हमारे और किसी के भी और एनी जनरल इंडस्ट्री. सो टिपिकली इट्स अ लॉट ऑफ हेवीली इन्फ्लुएंस्ड इम्बैलेंस. मतलब 95-5 रूल मिलेगा आपको. मतलब 95% ऑफ द प्रॉफिट्स कमिंग फ्रॉम ओनली 5% ऑफ द कस्टमर्स. तो रेस्ट बाकी के 95 क्या कर रहे हैं फिर? बाकी के 95 ट्रिवियल रिजल्ट्स दे रहे हैं आपको. तो उनको कट कर दो ऐसा नहीं बोला गया, बट यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड फर्स्ट कि क्या हो रहा है. सिमिलरली इन 20% ऑफ द मार्केटिंग एफर्ट्स मे ब्रिंग बिगर इन्फ्लुएंस ऑन द रिजल्ट. देयर इज अ ब्रिलियंट एग्जांपल फ्रॉम द सोशल इंडस्ट्री, सोशल मीडिया. 20% ऑफ द पोस्ट्स जनरेट 80%. ब्लॉग पे कुछ ही पोस्ट्स होते हैं जो हमारा ध्यान खींचते हैं, या कुछ ही पोस्ट्स हैं जो ऑथर के लिए बहुत सारा वायरल ट्रैफिक लेकर आते हैं. आप समझो ऑथर लिख रहा है और 1000 आर्टिकल्स लिख के उसमें से, तो अगेन द सेम रूल अप्लाइज. सारे वायरल नहीं होते उसमें से, राइट? कुछ ही वायरल हो जाते हैं और 1 मिलियन की ट्रैफिक आ जाती है उसके पास, बट देन ही बिकम्स अ बेस्ट सेलर ऑथर आफ्टर दैट. तो देयर आर की थिंग्स दैट मैटर is what we are here to learn today, right? So posts का हमने देखा. Now this another nice example from the software industry. 20% software modules account for 80% functionality. This is a brilliant example. But if the main functionality is not working, then it will be difficult for the app to go live, let's say, for example. So 20% of the software or 20 or again imbalance favor some functionality is the key functionality. So there is a theory of imbalance.